two IEDC professor of leadership, Paul-Georges Claudel and Pierre Casse, are going to present their ideas, at least some of them, regarding, well, what kind of leadership do we need for the new world in the making? We have designed this video around three questions. In other words, there will be three parts in our presentation. Part number one will be on what do we mean by the new world? What are the critical or key characteristics of that world that is in the making? The second part will be around what about the new leadership challenges that we are facing, and what can business schools like IEDC do to help the new leaders? And the third part will summarize around one key question, which is, what is the new leadership profile? What is it that leaders need to perform well and to enjoy their new roles as leaders? So, Paul, what I suggest is that we start with the first question, which is quite easy in a way, and that is, when we talk about the new world in the making, what do we mean? What do we have to say about that? What should leaders be aware of? That's the question. Paul.
Well, Pierre, I think we can say that the world is really changing very deeply, very profoundly, even violently, and at a fast pace.
Yes.
I think the most notable of these changes are, first, the general geopolitical upheaval, disorder, which is created by, let's say, for instance, Russia and its war and its challenge to destroy, you could say, the Western world and culture. Then the US changes imposed by the US administration, which are putting in question the transatlantic alliance and the NATO agreement that has been shaping the world since the Second World War ends. And finally, we have to say that in front of these challenges, Europe has to stand on its own. And that is a challenge to leaders of this world, and European world, I mean.
In other words, Paul, if I may interrupt you here, what you're saying is that what we're facing is a series of major unexpected changes, changes that are happening at a high speed, in a way, and that maybe the main thing that we have to be aware of is the changes related to the way we manage our collective lives. Am I right?
Yeah, that's right. Because in fact, these changes that I just mentioned are also appending the traditional Western international values that we had. Like, for instance, truth, trust, empathy, respect, authority. All this is being put in question and is very disturbing, let's say, for leadership and leaders of this today's world. Huh?
But Paul, what's new here? Don't you think that if you look at the evolution of humankind on this planet, we have always been facing changes, unexpected changes, and we're still around. So what's different today?
Well, I think there are two main forces that are really challenging leadership today.
And
one is social, and the other one is technological. The social one is the emergence of social media and social networks. This has completely flattened the social organization of this world, and we've moved from verticality to horizontality. And that, of course, is a tremendous difference. And the second big challenge and force is technology. Let's say the algorithm in general terms, and mainly the artificial intelligence as the key algorithm of today.
Would you go as far as saying that leaders, well, not quite ready for to face those changes, those profound changes? Would you go as far as saying that?
Yes, I think they're not quite ready because, first of all of them are not really aware of what's happening in depth here. And they have to understand the factors that are really changing the world, which I just mentioned. And secondly, how
Yes.
to react to that, how to develop an understanding and a response to the algorithm impact, and also how to deal with these social networks that are flattening the social world and therefore uh, disturbing the verticality of leadership that existed up to now.
I think that's a very good transition to the second question, which is basically what kind of really concrete challenges leaders are facing, but much more important maybe is what can IEDC and other business schools in the world, what they can do to help the new generation of leaders, right, to face those changes, profound changes, in a good and effective way. So would you agree that that's a kind of an introduction to the second part of our presentation?
It's true. Can business schools like IEDC help to
Yeah,
face these difficulties? I believe so. I believe that, first of all, you can open a debate in such
yeah,
schools and open the leaders' eyes to what is happening, as we have just mentioned, and then discuss with the leadership how do you respond to these challenges. And that's where leadership, I think, leadership schools
yeah,
need to also develop new skills to
that's
address
right.
these issues.
Very good. So let's move then to, after this kind of summary, let's move to the second part. What about the challenges, the concrete challenges that leaders in organizations, in teams, all right, and on their own too, are facing? And then we can really look at the skills that you just mentioned that they need, the new skills that they have to develop. So let's move to question number two now.
So, Pierre, I think the issue here is how can business schools and schools such as IEDC address these challenges that we mentioned? What skills do they need to develop inside themselves in order to help the leaders understand what's happening? And then what can they offer in terms of development of new skills to do that?
Very good. So knowing what's happening, what the challenges are, those unexpected challenges, profound challenges, let's see what business schools like IEDC can do to help. And I believe there are three things that business schools should focus on to really help the new generation of leaders, all right, to face those challenges. The first one is, I think, is at the individual level, business schools must help leaders to challenge their assumptions. That's the first thing I think that business schools must do. Instead of just teaching them, this is what you have to do, is to help them ask the right questions about their assumptions. Nothing should be taken for granted in the kind of world that you described in the first part of our video. All right, that's the first one. The second one is maybe a bit more difficult, is to unlearn, to help them get rid of those things that they have in their mental programmings, which are not quite in line with the requirements of the new world. So unlearn, not learn, but unlearn. And finally, I think its creativity is in order. And therefore, business schools like IEDC are going to have, and I think we can already say that IEDC is already doing it in a way with the focus on art, for example, imagination, invention, innovation, so on. Is creativity is key. That's one. The second one is teams. I think that business schools have to revisit the concept of teams. Now, I think in the kind of new world that you describe, they have to focus those schools on leading virtual teams when people are not facing each other. They are not in direct contact with each other. They are spread all over the world and they still have to work together. That's a different game altogether now. And the third one, you mentioned it. You mentioned it, Paul, is the partnership with artificial intelligence. And that, I think, is absolutely vital. Partnership with that kind of intelligence that we have invented, all right, and see what artificial intelligence can do much more effectively than human beings can do, and what is it that human beings must keep. Otherwise, we're going to lose something extremely critical, which is our identity. So I think that in the classroom and outside the classroom, business schools are going to have to focus on basically three things. Partnership with artificial intelligence should be based on, number one, asking the right question and the right way to the algorithm that you talked about. Because if you ask the wrong question, then you're getting the wrong answer, obviously. Point number two, challenge the sources of information. ChatGPT and so on are providing different answers to the same question. So we have to check them out. And thirdly, validate the answers. Now that we have some answers through the partnership with that kind of intelligence, non-organic intelligence, we have to validate. Is it all right? Is it good? Let's also keep an eye on something important. I mean, business schools, on ethics, on the ethical dimension, because there is a power game that is already going on right now between the non-organic intelligence and the human intelligence. And if we are not careful, and if business schools are not careful, there's a high risk there that we could lose the power that we need to survive. What is your reaction, Paul, to what I just said?
Well, I very much agree with what you've been bringing up, but I think we have to still focus on this main force that is challenging the leaders of today, which is the social media, the social network, because this is really changing the way that leaders can address issues and people. The notions of authority and respect don't exist anymore. There is a flattening of the relationship between people. Everybody can come up with a suggestion, an idea, and say it's just as good as any other one, and you have to respect that. And so it's very difficult for leaders to choose amongst all these different.
You're right. You're right, Paul.
Yeah.
You're right. But let's face it now. But let's face it. Social networks, they are beyond our control. Artificial intelligence, I think some experts are already saying that it is beyond our control. So what is it that's the critical challenge, isn't it, that business schools and leaders are facing? In that kind of world that is beyond our control, how can we still create that vital partnership? Not easy, is it?
Not easy at all. And here I think we're coming to a sort of philosophical view of things. I think we have to have a discussion on what is really happening and what is happening to our traditional values, and how can we cope with this arrival, this emergence of algorithm and social media. And one nourishes the other. Social media are produced by algorithm, and social media are using algorithm to have their influence and challenge the leaders, you know.
But don't you think, Paul, and that's what you have been teaching in IEDC, and sometimes together actually, in Kellogg and other business schools, don't you think that leads us to a much more fundamental question, and that is the meaning of things, the meaning of life for us human beings, not just for leaders, but for everybody, the meaning of life.
That's absolutely right. I think it's the fundamentals of everything, and people are very much questioning the meaning of life, but also the purpose of their activities as professionals. Why are we doing this?
Yes,
Are we
yes.
doing the right things? Are we still looking for what were the success factors in the past, like money, career, job satisfaction? All that is put in question, and people should, I think, take a sort of philosophical view of all this and question these ideas. Why are we here? What's happening?
Yes,
Can
yes,
we believe, respect, and
yes.
trust our leaders, and so on?
But to summarize before moving, because you just introduced the third part, actually, the profile of the new leaders, what they have to focus on. Don't you think that that's basically the question that we must keep in mind, especially business schools should keep in mind? And that is, let's switch to focusing on performance. All right, just the performance. You have to do well. You have to contribute effectively in the organization. Two, what's in it for us? What's in it for the people who are working? Back to the question of the meaning and the value of life for everybody. Otherwise, if we don't do that, there's a good chance that we're just going to disappear as a species. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that, and I think it really brings us to the fundamental question of what is the reference that we're all building our careers, our life, and an understanding of the world on. What is the fundamental meaning and purpose of life? If we don't remember
Yes.
and keep that in mind all the time, we don't know where we're going. We don't know how to focus. We don't know where to direct our actions, you know?
Yes, yes. And that's a good introduction to the third part, which is going to really focus on the deep sense, the deep side, actually, of what we're talking about, leadership for a new world.
Yes, I think we have to.
We're on pause. We're on pause.
We're on pause. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. So now you can build on that.
To the foundation of
Yes.
Of life and our need for survival and all that.
Right. So I'm going to ask you the question again. All right. What about the fundamentals? What's really critical? All right. So that we not only we perform, not only we enjoy, but we survive and grow. Ready?
Yeah.
So, Paul, the third part of our presentation is basically on, well, the fundamentals, all right? Really on the profile of the new leaders. What is it that really is critical? Is critical for not just the leaders, but for the people around. And actually, Paul, maybe we need a new concept, not just we move from administration to management, then to leadership. Maybe we're on the way to another way to look at people working together. What do you say?
I say this is the time to really take a look at what is a fundamental motivation factor of our existence. Why are we doing all this? Why are we in business? It's not to make money. It's not to be successful. It's something more profound than that. And all our team members are motivated by that same factor. And we have to understand that that's what is deep inside them, the key motivation factor that makes them operate. And which is, we have to now define it. In my view, it is the will to live. I think deep inside us, all of us are motivated by one fundamental factor, which is our will to live. And what we do, in any way that we do, whatever we do, is always motivated by this will we have to maintain our existence, to perpetuate our existence.
But that's philosophy, isn't it? Are you suggesting that what we need is a kind of philosophical leadership around?
Yes, I think so. I think it's time to take a philosophical look at our existence and at even our professional activities. Why are we doing this? What is motivating us? And remember that, again, it's not what we used to consider as key success factors. It's our very existence that we have to focus on. And all our team members are in that state of mind.
But therefore, if we follow you, Paul, you're basically suggesting a major transformation, not in just leadership, but also in the sense of business, in the sense of our collective lives, but also the meaning of life for each individual. That's what you are saying, aren't you?
Exactly. I'm saying that we have to find ways to stimulate our team members so that when they're doing their job, when they are performing, they're doing it very profoundly with the idea of satisfying their will to live. And we have to show them the link between the assignments that we give them and the satisfaction of their will to live. And there is a link, and it can be expressed in ways that are very legible for people. And I think that's where business schools can come in and speak at the same time this philosophical language and the leadership and professional language that they are accustomed to.
But that's a totally new, different way to look at the role of business schools, Paul, isn't it?
Yes, I think it is. And I think if we don't do that, business schools will lose their impact because they won't be addressing what really is important for people deep inside. They're just putting a varnish, let's say, on their activities, which they have been listening to for years and years.
Right. We are almost at the end with that kind of statement, I think, of our video part. What would be your conclusion? What is the last piece of wisdom, if I may use that word, or wisdom that you would share with the people who are going to watch this video?
I would say the conclusion is, let's go back to fundamentals, because these fundamentals are a great upheaval right now. People are lost to a large extent, and they have to go back to the roots of their activities, and that is what we just mentioned.
Very good. Would you agree with my own conclusion, Paul? Would you agree with my own conclusion that is very simple? I believe that we are getting into a brand new world, yes, and that world is both exciting and scary. Would you agree?
Yes, I think it's true. And anything that's new is exciting and scary and has to be understood and addressed. And I think that's a role we can play in schools such as this one.
Very good. Thank you very much, Paul. Anything you would like to add?
No, I think I'd just like to say that I'm glad to contribute to a video for the anniversary, the 40th anniversary of this wonderful school that we have both been teaching in.
Yes. Thank you very much, Paul. And I fully agree with your last statement. Yes, I think IEDC has been on the right track, and it should stay on the right track, reinventing itself. It's not just a business school with a view. It's a business school with a preview. Thank you very much, Paul. Take good care.
Thank you.
Thank you.